a Love Tutoring Festival when I joined last year. And obviously sort of the amount of people I've told about it, and I think what we're trying to achieve as a collective is also all we want is the passionate success of everybody, every child in the country. And I think we can only reach one child at a time, and we do what we do best to sort of to make that impact and make that change. So I can only just say massive thanks for allowing me the opportunity to take the stage for today. Unfortunately, I'm not the same nice, calm individual that Hannah comes across with her meditative mind and her just the way her voice is so soothing. But ultimately she she did amazing things for me over the last 2 days, so at lunchtime. So that was pretty cool. But essentially what it is that we do, the crux of the things that we do, uses the same insights that Hannah and Diego live by, with regards to we're teaching the art of conscious meditation. We are giving people the ability to know what attention looks and feels like, to be in that place. So to kind of give you a bit of background, my daughter, we moved from another country. My daughter already had an ADHD diagnosis. She struggled horrifically in the first year, despite promises from the school about assistance and interventions. And essentially, at the end of that year, it was catastrophic. And I went looking for something to do to help her, because how can I help my daughter learn better? It's never, ever a question about intelligence. We know how incredibly clever all our children are, but it's just, why is there a difference between what they're capable of and what they're achieving? So I went on the search. I found a couple of solutions that worked for us, turned it into a business, and 4 years later, here we are. And essentially, it's just as a result of that intervention with my daughter. She's still a sassy 16-year-old that, make no mistake, will give me a hard time at every minute of every day, but she managed to get her GCSEs, and she got 5 Bs and 2 As. And essentially that's all we want. We want our children to understand what they're capable of and change their cognitive abilities to achieve the great things that we know they're capable of. So essentially what I did is I implemented a cognitive skills development strategy intervention with her. And so through this journey and the education that's resulted as that of that is how important the cognitive skill set is on our ability to learn on a daily basis. So basically going to run through that, but and meditation and that bringing the anxious mind down to a calm and clear state is pivotal. So with regards to cognitive skills and the difference between training and what we do and tutoring, because sometimes there's a blur in that knowledge. And essentially what we want, educational content plus the cognitive skills in working optimally equals a fantastic outcome. Learning is simple, easy and fun. But when we've actually got educational content that maybe isn't being communicated in the right way, but we've got a beautiful cognitive skill set, we get boredom and frustration and apathy out of our students. We go one line down and we actually got, if we've got educational content that's being relayed amazing, we've got the most amazing teachers in the world, but our cognitive skills aren't really working effectively, then we've got learning struggles and frustration, low self-esteem, anxiety comes as a massive situation as a byproduct. But then if we actually have amazing teachers and tutors, we have cognitive skills that are refined and defined, then we actually ultimately will have academic success, which is all that we could wish for. And I think following on from the amazing speakers that we heard this morning, Nina and Dave, it's just they've given me an awful lot of insight about how I need to change my business and what I will be doing to incorporate some of those methodologies. And I can only say, you can only do better when you know better. And so thanks for all those insights this week, because I've gained all kinds of amazing things that we're going to do to make learning different for our own children. So with regards to teaching and tutoring. It provides information and knowledge. And essentially, with regards to the cognitive training, we strengthen the skills that the brain uses to grasp that information. So, for example, a practical situation that we've had was this 12-year-old boy. The observations from the teachers and parents was he's daydreaming, he's not keeping up in class, he struggles with maths and his schoolwork, and it's not optimal. So we actually did a focus assessment on him, and we found that his attention was actually in a norm range, but his brain processing speed was actually operating below that norm. What does that mean? Slow processor. It takes time for him to understand things. It takes him a little bit longer to grasp that concept. But we also established that his visual and auditory processes were actually outside the norm range, which means he was really easily distracted. And what we need to take away from this is, when we've done the focus assessment on him, we established why some of his struggles are there. The problem that's coming in is, if we can't look at a child and say, well, you're easily distracted, stop being distracted, because he doesn't know what that is. That's currently how his brain is wired. So what we need to do is figure things out. What can we do to work in accordance with his strengths? If we know he's really easily distracted, we've got to put strategies in place to always keep him, John, look me in the eyes, ask me what I've just asked you to do, repeat after me, let's do this together, those kind of things. So that just gives you some insight into sort of what it is that we can do. So cognitive function is obviously about the ability. It's knowing the ability to perform the various mental tasks that are required to learn. The cognitive skills essentially are the mechanisms. So it's about what skills do we need to carry out those complex tasks. And then the cognitive skills development is about the learning. What we need to understand is we're all gifted these skills at birth, and some develop as they're supposed to, and some lag behind, but we don't know why. And it's something that we need to try to identify and strengthen and develop those with the right training. There are a variety of platforms and programs available, but I think it's just finding one and knowing if we have got a cognitive skill weakness somewhere, there is something that can be done to change that. So with regards to the core skills, core cognitive skills, we need them to be able to think, reason, learn, remember, pay attention. We need to be able to process information. So when you're telling me something, how does that information process? When cognitive skills are weak, learning is going to be a challenge. And when cognitive skills are strong, learning is going to be simple, easy, and fun. It's going to, we're not going to have as many struggles that we're seeing at the moment. And also, just to sort of give you some insights, we recently did an assessment in a school where we've actually measured our attentional control through 130 children, years 5 and 6. The alarming situation is we found out that approximately 11% of those are in a position to cognitively be able to effectively learn. That's actually really a shocking statistic, which is in line with other agencies that we've spoken to about their findings. And so we're sitting in a situation where we've got children that aren't cognitively able to learn effectively, but you guys as the teachers and the tutors are tasked with applying these children with knowledge. And so we've got to find out a way to bridge that gap between strengthening those cognitive function while you're imparting that knowledge. So we go back to executive function. So the executive function is a set of mental skills that helps you get stuff done. No one's born with strong executive function. It's basically gifted to us at birth, and our life and our developmental process and our learnings and our interactions all see how those all strengthen over time. And essentially, I just want to go through a little bit of an infographic here for you. The tip of the iceberg is everybody is given with the ability to learn, read, listen, think, don't fidget, keep still, remember, pay attention, problem solve. The problem that comes in, it really is the tip of the iceberg. If you see problems with any of these key areas, it ultimately is pointing to the potential that there's many cognitive skills that lie underneath that are causing those problems that you're seeing. The behaviors, they can't be helped. let me go back. So when we've got somebody who's got a struggle to remember things and pay attention, and their problem solving, their mental maths is a struggle, what we need to remember, there's the really good chance that there's a working memory challenge, or there's a short-term memory challenge, or even an auditory process that's going on behind the scenes causing some of those challenges. Some of them can be repaired at my level with cognitive skills development. Some needs to go deeper. It all depends on the history of the child, what they've been through. And in Nudge Education's perspective, with the admirable work that they do, they work with all kinds of children, including those with fetal alcohol syndrome and other serious challenges like that. And so cognitive skills development becomes part and parcel of that mentoring and change project management that we've got with those children going forward. So what skills do you think you need to perform academically? Do you think these skills can be strengthened? Well, obviously, that's what I've told you. But I think what I want to do first is I want to go through a quick demonstration and to show you the complexity of what cognition looks like. So I'm going to give you 10 seconds, and I do have my timer on, and I'm going to ask you to sort of just execute a task for me. So I want you to spell the name of the UK Prime Minister, and I want you to do it backwards, preferably in your mind, not on a piece of paper. 10, right, here we go. You've got 10 seconds. Are you all ready? How are you doing? Are you good? Okay, well, essentially, I want to walk you through, obviously, what was the answer? Obviously, the answer was Johnson, right? So we've got an N-O-S, we've got an N-H-O-J. Right, so I want you to walk through what your brain had to do at that time. So first you had to remember who the Prime Minister was, and that is your long-term memory. Then you had to decide on a strategy for completing that task. So that's your logic and reasoning. Most of you probably projected the word Johnson in your mind or the air. That's your ability to visual process. When you had to decide on what letters went into the word. So that's a version of your auditory processing. You had to keep track of the letters that were coming up. So that's your working memory. You may have got frustrated or distracted halfway through because the phone rang or somebody moved on the screen, and you had to engage your attention skills. And I only gave you 10 seconds, so that worked on your processing speed. So what we need to remember, just what something that seems like such a simple task is actually really quite complex. And this is what we're expecting our children to do minute by minute. So and there we go. So let's right. So cognitive skills in terms of your long-term memory, we've got what does it do? It enables you to recall information that you stored in the past. We've got your short-term memory. It teaches you how to process information, both visual and auditory, to hold that information in your short-term memory long enough for recall. We've got your working memory. Enables you to hang on to information while in the process of using it. It's very similar to short-term memory. They're basically part and parcel the same thing. They just have very small nuances with regards to what it is that they do. So then we move on to your logic and reasoning. What enables you to reason, form ideas, solve problems. Auditory processing enables you to analyze, blend and segment sounds. Processing speed enables you to perform tasks quickly and accurately. We've got many children that come through our business with regards to it takes them so much longer to understand things, but when we're working at 100 k's an hour in the classroom because we've got to get through the curriculum, it causes some challenges. So your jobs as tutors is amazing, because you can work at their pace, you can fine-tune that information. Visual processing, we've got many children who can't think in images. They just don't understand what that projection looks like and how to visually represent something so that they can manipulate that information the way that they need to. And basically, then we run down to we've got many children. I had a conversation with a parent yesterday who even told me at the age, she's in year 10, she's got struggles with her reading and spelling. She's got, I think, the reading age of an age 8 now, I think, and she's in year 10 now. How did this happen? On the basis that how come she's been promoted and nobody's picked anything up, and there's been no interventions that have been able to assist her going forward? They're only now applying for time for her, additional time in tests and so forth to get her through her GCSEs. But you know, it's a problem. We've got reading struggles that are due to a weakness in the auditory process. We've got struggles with the ability to focus and pay attention. What I can tell you is, of all the children that we've worked with, it's never ever attention that's the problem, even though we may have an attention deficit of sorts. We've got poor memory skills. Our children can't remember. And visual processing, that we can't get them to use the mental pictures that help them comprehend and engage with things. So ultimately, you know, we've got to sort of come through and understand that although Dave is 100% correct with regards to what he was talking about this morning, we've got to engage with them, we've got to go on their level, we've got to be creative, think outside the box, get them that passion for learning. But in the same breath, if we're also not able to cognitively process what it is that you want from me, we're actually going to be in a whole heap of trouble. So for now, what? I've got 12 minutes to go. So for me, in my perspective, with regards to how I worked with my daughter, you can only do better when you know better, and to measure is to know. So for me, it was really pivotal in my daughter's life that when we found out what we found out, I knew what to do about it. So my question to you guys, is it possible, is it my show of hands, or even just something in the chat with regards to is there any of you that do assessments and when enrolling your children or your students, and do you reassess them with that same assessment as you go forward so that you can determine their progress? Is that something that we're doing over time? Very quiet. Well,
one I would do over time. I'd watch them the first couple of sessions to see how they go,
right,
see how they're doing it, and then sort of watch it and develop. But it wouldn't be a formal assessment,
right,
in any way.
Okay. Well, look, at least it's something, because we all need a start point. From my perspective, when we're doing our training, is we always do the benchline assessment so that we can see where the child is currently. And I think from us, which is really important, we do pivotal stages where we have feedback sessions with the parent, where we're showing them the data and the graphs of what it is their children are achieving. And then we reassess so that we can see the change that it is that we're making. That for us is really pivotal. And I think that's what stands us out from possibly any other intervention, is the basis that we've actually got factual data that we can put towards seeing the change in your child. We're not asking them to sort of repeat phone numbers and things like that. What we're actually working on is their ability to strengthen and develop that recall, that short-term memory, that working memory. And we're actually also doing increasing that ability to focus and pay attention by giving them real-time feedback on what attention looks and feels like. The brain doesn't work in the anxious state. It's really quite pivotal that we need to get our children into learning. It's with regards to taking that deep breath when they walk in a classroom. Again, going back to Hannah, take that deep breath, breathe out, fill up the lungs, use the diaphragm, sit down, do it again. All those kind of things. Because that's really, really pivotal to about settling the brain so it's ready to learn and engage. So our assessment measures, our assessment, it only takes 20 minutes. It's a norm reference scientific measurement tool. It's got no site licenses, no hardware. It does virtual testing, and it actually measures the effects of distractions on attentional control. So in the reality is, if we've got a child that's actually struggling to pay attention, we can actually measure how impacted they are by auditory visual influence and to what extent that is. And I think ultimately this is where it was a game changer for me with my daughter, because once I knew she had auditory visual processing challenges, then I knew what to do with that, and I knew what advice to give her tutors and teachers about how to interact with her. And this is where we've actually got involved with Nudge, because Diego's had the amazing insight to understand that he's already doing an incredible job with the children that he's making an impact on. But if we know what we know about how their brains are currently wired, we know what we can do to implement additional interventions to go even further and help them out. So going forward, what I just wanted to give you an insight was with regards to my daughter. This is my personal story with her. It told us she was really only able to pay attention, consistency is attention, 43% of the time, way back in the beginning. Her brain was processing information at a great speed because she's in this dark purple section, but her impulsivity off the charts. It was hurry up and go, careless mistakes, no attention to detail. Essentially, I'll come back to this slide again. But what we found out in the beginning was she actually had problems filtering out visual distractions. And then because she'd lost track of what was being taught to her, she'd go into a daydream state. She'd be all fairies and unicorns and everything was fabulous. But now the problem that came in is, now that we actually have those insights into how her brain works, we managed to change her profile. We changed her ability to focus and pay attention, and we took that up to 91%. We actually took her brain processing speed and made that faster. That attention to detail, that impulsivity, that ability to stop and think before I actually answer that question or write something on the paper, we brought that from 88 down to 8%. But where I think the beauty of it all was, there we go, is the fact that we brought that auditory visual process for her back into a norm reference, and so she was able to effectively filter. And I think it's for us, once you know what you know, then you know what to do. And so the purpose of cognitive skills training, it's obviously you need a customized program based on the individual needs of the what your challenges you're currently experiencing. And what we really need to remember is that weak skills don't and won't catch up with age. They really won't. And I think it's a cognitive skills or executive function training is a way of targeting and strengthening those skills. But the downside is, I don't think at this point there's many companies that offer that kind of training around the country, but it is becoming more readily available. And over and above that, what we do, we use some targeted games using the brain to develop the cognitive skills and shape behaviors. And it wasn't really a promotion, it was literally just to show you the fact that we've got a targeted skills program, but we've got an assessment that measures, which is really quite pivotal to knowing what you know about your students. What if you know that, to measure is to know you can do amazing things. And we've got to remember, education is not the learning of the facts, but it's the training of the mind to think for itself. So in a nutshell, again, I just need to thank Diego and the team at Nudge for the opportunity. And if you have any questions, by all means.
Mandy, can I just jump in and say thank you as well? I mean, for two reasons. Here is the main one, as I say, I often say this to Julia, and this is no kind of, I'm not alluding to any religion, by the way, but you genuinely are serving the right God. You really genuinely are trying to make the experiences and the lives of young people that kind of use your assessment better. Now, for those of us who are teaching, tutoring, intervening, mentoring, whatever that is, this is really useful for two reasons. I think number one, it could potentially give you an indication of the successfulness of your work, but also if you're tutoring a child, you're not tutoring a child mostly, I'd probably say, unless you come from some of those really well-known private schools who are trying to get people to become prime ministers. really we're teaching young people who are falling behind somehow. And then suddenly you stop tutoring that child, then what? Then actually you need to hand that child over to somebody. Actually, trauma and the experiences of not being understood or misunderstood, regardless of how well trained your brain is, again, it will take you back to that place where you were before. So, insights such as the ones that Focus Academy can provide us can't help you if you're in the business of really serving the right God, which is children living a life worth living, whether they're falling behind academically or whether they are chronically disengaged or whether they are actually chronically depressed or anxious, or whatever that is. You've got to be able to do the handover really, really well. And that handover comes with actual measures and understanding and insights about that child. The other thing that I think is, I'm assuming I would have been a great child for you to use this program in when I was in school, Mandy. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming that, and I know we have to go, but I'm assuming that children must feel absolutely fantastic once they begin to understand that they are no longer the one who kind of gets distracted and so on after they've went through that training. So really amazing. Really heartfelt, thank you, Andy. And so much there. I wish we had an hour because I'd love to ask you lots and lots of questions on the stuff that you covered there. But thank you for coming close to Nudge Education and becoming a friend. So I appreciate that. So I'll hand this over to Ludo now. Is that right? Ludo, Julia, one of the two.
I wanted to thank you as well, Mandy. Sorry, I was screened off for a bit there. I'm juggling COVID patients at the moment. But I know, right? I think it's really exciting, the combination of your assessment tool and the Nudge students. And I can tell you from personal experience that Diego's an innovator, and being able to see what people need and grab onto it is really exciting. You've got some feedback in the chat from people who want to speak to you. So please make sure that you put your email address there so that people can find you, Mandy. We're going to pause now. Helen, maybe we could play some music or something. We're going to have a quiet half hour. Maybe